Well, I know that in this congregation we have a lot of avid readers. And so you may know that there is a term in the publishing world which is known as the Oprah effect. Have you heard of the Oprah effect? The Oprah effect is that whenever Oprah Winfrey recommends a book on one of her TV shows or in her magazine or on her website, that book immediately becomes a bestseller every single time. And so publishing houses have teams of people that work very hard to make sure Oprah endorses their book. Now, I certainly do not have the clout or the influence of Oprah Winfrey, but I do love it that whenever I mention a book title in one of my homilies, there's always a handful of people here who run out and get the book and read it and want to talk to me about it. That makes me so pleased that my mention of these books over the years has gotten so many of you to discover really amazing people like Richard Rohr and Diana Butler Bass and John Shelby Spong and Nadia Bolz-Weber, to name just a few. Today, I want to share with you another book title. This is one of my favorite spiritual books of all time, and I recently discovered that Oprah Winfrey said it's one of her favorite spiritual books too. In fact, her quote about this book is, she said, "This book changed my perspective on life and religion." This book is called Discover the Power Within You. Now, I know that there are some of you right now thinking, based on the title, this sounds like one of Pastor Sal's woo-woo, new agey type books. Okay. That is not what this book is. This book is based on the teachings and the words of Jesus of Nazareth. It was written by a Christian minister, the late Reverend Eric Butterworth, and it was published more than 50 years ago. The words of integration and guidance that were in your bulletin this morning, they come from that book. And as you notice, just in that short little paragraph that Sue read for us this morning, Reverend Butterworth uses many quotes of Jesus from the Bible to support his point. And what is the point that he's trying to make in the book? The point he's trying to make is that the heart and the core of Jesus' teachings, the heart and the core of Jesus' message was not about his divinity, but was about our divinity. Jesus wanted to get us to awaken not to the understanding that he was the Son of God, but that we too were sons and daughters of God. Jesus was trying to get us to awaken to the understanding not that he was the light of the world, but that we too are the light of the world. And Jesus was trying to get us to awaken to the understanding not that he and the Father were one, but that we too are one with God. And that's why throughout the Gospels, over and over again, Jesus says this. He said, "You are sons and daughters of God." He said, "You are the light of the world." He said, "You are all God's because you are all children of the Most High." And he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." These are the words of Jesus. Look it up. Jesus was trying to get us to understand that it wasn't about his connection with God, but about our connection with God. That it wasn't about his inner authority and power, but about our inner authority and power. Jesus wanted us to discover that power within us so that we could do all of the things that he did. My friends, this is not heresy. These are the exact words of Jesus in the Bible. Look it up. He said, quote, "All of the things that I have done, you can do." And then he added, "These things and greater." Jesus wanted us to awaken to this power, to discover this power. You have the power. Now, the front cover of your bulletin says "Sent with Power," because as we just heard in the gospel reading, Jesus sends out his apostles 2 by 2, alone, out into neighboring villages to do as he did, to heal and to work miracles. And he tells them, you don't need to bring anything with you because you already have everything you need. Now, I've shared with you before, the version of the Bible that I pray with is called the Message Bible. It is the most recent translation of the Bible. And in the Message translation of that line, it says, Jesus says to the apostles, you don't need to bring any equipment because you are the equipment. You are the equipment. You have the power. And did you notice how the gospel ended today? It said the apostles did go out 2 by 2 without Jesus. And they were able, it said, to work many deeds of power, healing people and performing miracles. Did you know that the disciples performed miracles as great as Jesus? Read the Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament, and you will see example after example of how they were able to dispel unclean spirits, how they were able to heal people, and yes, they were even able to raise the dead. So if all of this stuff is in the Bible, if Jesus keeps telling us this over and over and over and over again, why didn't we get the message? Why don't we believe it? Well, Reverend Butterworth begins the book by sharing an ancient Hindu legend. He said, once upon a time, all men were divine, but they abused their divinity, and so Brahma, the chief god, took away their divinity and said, I'm going to hide it where they'll never find it. And he thought, I'm going to bury it deep in the core of the earth. But then he thought, well, no, eventually man will discover how to get to the core of the earth and they'll find it. Then he thinks, well, I'll bury it at the bottom of the sea. But then he thinks, no, man's going to eventually figure out how to get to the bottom of the sea and they'll find it. And then he thinks, well, I'll hide it up on the top of the highest mountain. But then he thinks, no, man will eventually climb every mountain and find it. And then he thinks, aha, I'm going to hide it in a place where they'll never think to look for it, a place they'll never find it. I'm going to hide man's divinity within himself. They'll never think to look for it there. And so ever since that time, man has been looking all over the world for the Holy Grail, up and down, searching, climbing, exploring, for something that was within him all along. That's the legend. Now, Jesus was a man from Nazareth over 2,000 years ago who discovered that divinity within himself. And he made it his mission in life to teach others how to find it within themselves. But most of us did not follow Jesus in this deeper exploration. What did we do instead? We built a church in order to honor and worship him. Jesus didn't want that. Father Richard Rohr says it beautifully. He says, Jesus doesn't want fans. Jesus wants followers. Jesus doesn't want to be worshiped. He wanted you to do as he did, which means he discovered the Christ within him, and he wants you to discover it within you too. Now, I gave a talk a few years ago here at Douglas UCC, and the title was, Christ is not Jesus' last name. Okay? And as we heard Reverend Butterworth say in the words of integration this morning, Christ isn't a person. Christ is a principle. It is an energy. It is a force, a light, a power. Jesus discovered that divine power within him. That light which he said is the light which lighteth every man. Everyone has this light. And Jesus wanted us to discover that light. But again, for over 2,000 years now, we just think it's easier to worship the one guy who found the light within him rather than doing it for ourselves, which is what he wanted us to do. So, I'm ready for my next show and tell item. So today, I not only am sharing with you a book, I'm sharing a shirt. It's one of my favorite shirts. And the shirt says, I had the power all along. Do you know where it's from? The Wizard of Oz. Okay? So remember in the Wizard of Oz, first of all, I need to give credit to a minister in Maryland. His name is Reverend Raymond Anderson. He came up with that shirt for his congregation, and I love it. If you remember from the Wizard of Oz, at the end of the story, Glinda, the good witch, tells Dorothy and her friends, you had the power all along. Remember, they thought that they had to go to the wizard to get the things that they were seeking, right? And she tells them, but you had the power all along. Those things were with you the whole time. That's really what we're trying to get you to understand today, is that you don't have to go seeking outside of yourself. You already have it. You've already been anointed. This was your divine birthright. You already have it within you. But most people don't believe it. People who are very devout Christians, they think, I'm not the Christ. I can't do what Jesus did. They find it heretical to even consider the possibility. But remember from the Gospels, whenever somebody is healed, Jesus never takes credit for it. Not one time. What does Jesus say? He says, your faith has made you whole. Your belief has made you well. That's what he says. You did it. But you got to believe. If you believe that you're powerless, then that's what's going to manifest in your life. You're not going to be able to exhibit power. Notice how this gospel story began. Jesus went into his own hometown, among his own family and friends, and it said he could work no deeds of power there. Jesus could work no deeds of power there. And why? It said because of their unbelief. They didn't believe in the power. And so Jesus couldn't work any miracles there. That's why he tells the apostles, when you go into a town, if people don't believe, just move on. He says, just kick the dust off your feet and move on. Eventually you'll find people who are ready to awaken to this power. And that's where you'll be able to heal and work miracles. So, where does that leave us today? Where does that leave you? Do you believe in the words of Jesus? Or do you think, no, Jesus was just talking about special people, not me? Well, that's up for you to decide. There is just one power in the universe. That power is within you, and it is within me. And Jesus was trying to get us to awaken to that power within us. The contemporary spiritual writer whose name is Eckhart Tolle, another writer I know many of you love, he said, "Stop looking outside yourself for scraps of pleasure. Stop looking outside yourself for validation, for love, for security. You have within you a power that is greater than anything the world can give you." This is that inner treasure that Jesus spoke of in the gospel. That inner treasure, it's hidden within you. You have to find it, but it's there. And Carl Jung said, "Those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken." That is why I believe we're here. That is what I believe is the message of Jesus. Jesus wanted us to awaken to this power, this one true power, this one true light that is within us all, so that we could go out and perform miracles and heal the world. I do believe we can do that. I know right now many of you feel hopeless or powerless, but you're giving away your power to leaders who are aligned with ego. When we align our power with the power of love, we'll overcome the love of power. That's our purpose. We can heal the world. We can heal our country, our nation, the world. We can work miracles, but we have to believe that we have that power. But we have been anointed, and we have been given the power. So let us go forth to awaken more fully to that light, to awaken more fully to the truth of our being, for it is that truth that will set us all free. Namaste.